welcome everybody. This is Masaki coming to you live from State 43, and today we're going to talk about an awesome event that's super new called Azurtane Heist. And this event is basically think about it like it's a solo version of Reservoir Raid. You would have to register for the event a day before or 2 days before. Pick a time. Usually it's going to be, I think your choices are 2, 9, 14, and 19, I think, are the choices that you get. UTC, of course. And then, of course, you show up on the day of the event and you can enter when it's your turn to start your heist. In general, the first thing that you should know about this event is you want to make sure that you have nobody in the hospital, you want to have empty hospitals, and that you don't have any outstanding marches outside of your base. That is actually pretty key, so make sure those are satisfied. Otherwise, you will not be able to enter the heist. Okay, coming over, talking a little bit about the event itself. The first thing you want to know is that you have infinite troops. So don't worry about losing troops. You actually don't even need to heal in the hospital. So that's one big difference between this and Reservoir Raid. The other part of it is just that we have to look at like the buildings here. So you have gas fields, level 1, 2, and 3. They're located kind of like all over the map. Obviously the level 1s, level 2s, level 1s are on the outer side, level 2s middle, center, and level 3 really in the center. The levels, as the levels go higher, the infected technically is harder to kill, but you'll be able to hit it. What's more important though is your higher level opponents are going to be hitting the level 3 fields by themselves, right? And we got to talk about eruptive gas fields. These are really important. So at 20 minutes and 40 minutes, so just look at the event clock. So when the event clock hits 40, which is 20 minutes into the event, they'll show up on the map. When they show up, what that means is that these fields are available for gathering. They have about 3,000 gas in reserve, but you gather them at 300 per second versus like your normal level 1s or 8 or 16 for level 2 or 32 even for level 3. So these are huge. They're going to really boost your points. So you definitely want to be sending your troops as much as possible to gathering those when they show up. As of right now, it does look like you can gather more than one. So you can of course recall before the eruptive fields show up, or you can of course just do a relocator, advanced relocator, and then have all your recalls come back. Okay, so let's enter into the field and look at what we're looking for here. So you're kind of sent randomly on the field, but you're going to be on the outer edge. As you can see near you, you're going to have some level 1 gas fields. That's around the outer ring. But in the inner ring of the green, you're going to have level 2s and you're going to have level 3s even further into the ring. So that's just something to think about and look forward to. All right, so now the event's about to begin. In general, I think the strategy would be something like this, right? You do want to send out all of your gatherers if you can to attack whichever field that you feel like you can overtake. In addition to that, you do want to also make sure that you basically are using all 5 gatherers. You are looking around the map for potential drops for pickups. Now, attacking level 2 is always going to be a little bit risky because in general, for something like this, people are going to be wanting to kind of gather, or they're going to be wanting to kind of take that stuff over from you. As you can see, as you hit one of these mines, you're going to have a bunch of basically bits of the azurite drop out, azurtane drop out, and you should be able to gather from that. Remember, the gathering is a separate march slot, so it does not take an extra march to do the gathering, right? But you can only do one gather at most, so at any one time. Now, another strategy obviously is at the beginning of the battle, pour it into somewhere in the middle, and then gather from there, and that way you can also basically be very close to the other part of the fight. Now, I would say if you are medium level, right? If you're up to like about level, you're a 3-star, 4-star where you can kind of defend a little bit, I would say try gathering in the middle. So you're straddling the level 1 and level 2 area. It's a little bit more dynamic there, and you actually might get a lot more potential for hits. How does hitting work? So as you can see, I'm hitting some dudes on the map. Obviously, I'm not going to win against these guys, but I'm just showing you that if you hit, your march is going to take 20 stamina, But if you hit and lose, it's gonna refund you 10 stamina back. So be aware of that. It's not free, so you definitely don't want to be hitting people too much because you're gonna waste all your stamina. It does work like a normal battle though, where you can wound their troops and eventually make them weak enough where they would have to go back home. So that is something to think about. The other part of, if you win, it will also drop Azurtane on the ground so that you can pick it up, etc. So that's kind of nice. So if you're higher level, one of the strategies you might want to use is hop around the map to hit other people's Azurtane mining, and then be able to basically let them drop their Azurtane and then pick those up because you're already hopped next to it and you're pretty close. You're going to pick them up. The reason you pick these up is because these are ridiculously rewarding, right? So if you gather, let's say you're gathering a level 2, right? You're getting 16 per second. So let's say after about a minute, you have like maybe about like 1,000 or so Azurtane, right? But however, if you gather or pick up these things on the floor, even though you can only have one march per like at each time, you're looking at 800, 1,000, 1,200 to 2,000 Azurtane each pickup. So imagine each time you do a pickup, you're kind of basically getting a minute worth of mining, right, on a level 2, which for most players is actually kind of hard. And looking at level 3s, I mean, they're basically being fought by all these guys who are, plasma 5, 7s, etc. So your chance of getting the pickups are going to be very tough. Another pro tip is, I would say, don't gather any Azurtane that's further than maybe about 15 seconds march from you, because you're going to get front running. You're going to be caught by other people who are going for the exact same location. And that's going to be really tough too, because basically what's going to happen is you're going to spend all this time marching and then you're not going to get anything and you have to march back as well. Remember, you can't send another gatherer you can't send another pickup until your previous pickup returns home. So keep that pickup really short, and then just pick up locally around you is my recommendation. Even if something looks like it's open, I wouldn't go for it if it's really far away. Let's talk about the point system in this map. You can look at the leaderboard, which will show you your rank, but also your total points. The point up top is reflective of basically what you have, what's kind of like out there being risked. So there's a part that's reserved and there's a part that's in mining. So this is a little bit tricky. So technically, you don't have all of what you see up there yet. Your miners do have to return home before you get those points. So it's a little bit tricky, but just remember, like, you don't have it in reserve until the miners go home. Because if somebody attacks you while you're mining, especially if you've mined quite a bit, you can actually lose quite a chunk of that as well. So that's something to think about, is basically you don't quite have everything until you return. So if somebody attacks you, the best way is to actually recall your miners. Do you know that in this event too, not only are you getting rewarded for the points, you are also rewarded for amount of stamina spent. So you do want to keep your stamina low, but not too low that you have no actions. But feel free to spend them, because you are generating 1 stamina per 6 seconds. So that's actually quite quick. And every minute you're going to get 10. So that's quite enough to get you through the map. Let's talk points a little bit, especially around the points that you get from pickup. So if you hop over to reports, you can see your pickup's actually quite a bit of points, 1,200, 800, some 2,000s, etc. So definitely something that I would encourage you to do is doing pickups. But again, reminder, 10 seconds, 15-second march is pretty much the max you should be doing. Don't do long pickups, because if you only get one of those march, and then you're taxing yourself. Parking on the outside obviously is another strategy. As you can see, a lot of other players are doing that, and that's actually really, really key as well. All right, let's talk quickly about what happens when you get attacked. So as you can see, I'm being attacked. First thing you want to do is find out where you're being attacked. So you see the march, you should be recalling your troops. The reason you recall is because if you don't recall, you're going to lose a portion of the gas that you've already mined. Now, you do get some of it. You don't lose all of it, but you do want to recall if they're marching against you. Just something that's how you defend it. The easy way, of course, to recall is just to cycle through all of your different marches. So For me, especially since I'm a lower level, I assume that if they're attacking me that I'm weaker than they are. So that's why I would recall. Another way kind of strategically to play this is gather from really far away. Now that does make your march really, really far, but it also prevents them from, without a scout, to know what's on that node. So sometimes people don't really want to risk it. They don't really want to attack without scouting, so they kind of just like let it go. So that's another way to do it as well. Okay, around the 20-minute mark of the event, so 40-minute on the clock, eruptions will happen. And these are the nodes that I was talking about earlier, where you only have to gather 10 seconds and they will give you 3,000 each. You do want to be recalling your marches before this happens though, otherwise you're wasting time. So yeah, as you can see, I'm kind of catching up to this part. So when eruptions happen, you do want to recall everything. The easy way to do that, obviously, is use your relocator, and that's a good time to use it. That's actually when you should be using your relocator to just get all your troops back home. The other part about eruptions is that as eruptions are happening, as people are gathering, finishing gathering, there will be a lot of azurtane splattered on the ground. That is a good time also to be gathering. So make sure you don't really have to be anywhere specific on the map. You're going to have eruptions everywhere. But the key is make sure you're kind of near a massive amount of eruptions. Make sure you're gathering as many of the eruptions as possible, making sure you're picking up as much as possible. This is the time to spend a ton of your stamina. So do not hold back. If during this time you also feel like, towards the end of it, so it does last 5 minutes total. If towards the end of it you feel like, hey, you can kind of time some things and gather on some of the level 2 nodes, I would recommend it. So my strategy, I think, for this portion is if you're at the corner of the map, especially around eruption time, port over to the center, straddle the level 1 and level 2 field area first, and just kind of sit there a little bit for eruptions, right? That's one way to do it. Since I was sitting there in most of this part, I actually didn't know what the competition looks like on like the corners of the map. I wonder if it's more intense than here. But basically, yeah, gather as much as possible, and then you want to be, taking eruptions as much as possible. If you hit a bug during this time where the eruptions don't show up, just kind of look away from your area and then look back, and then you'll see, like, maybe use the mini map, for example, and then they'll show up again. So remember the eruption part lasts 5 minutes total. So if it hasn't been 5 minutes, do not stop gathering, right? There are still eruptions available, so definitely gather from them. Do not spend time on the level 2 at this time. Another thing is during eruption, don't be too afraid of attacks. You're going to gather so fast that the attacks pretty much won't even hit you, right? So it's 10 seconds. Their march probably won't even get to you before it's over. So something to think about. The last special event to take note during Azurtane Heist is the center. So just make sure that around the 15-minute clock, the center will open. And this is a time for when, I guess, most of the higher level people are going to challenge the center. Now, one of the problems with the center is if you are basically don't have at least tier 11 troops or 5 stars or 4 stars, I wouldn't even really try for center. And the reason for that is because it's just really messy, right? There's a lot of people marching center. There's going to be a lot of people there. And your ability to kind of grab center will be very, very, very difficult. Yeah, that's just how it is. In fact, actually, just now we saw my buddy there, Nemesis from State 438 on center for a couple minutes. The cool thing, obviously, if you can hold center for a long time, you are going to get a lot of points. But as you can see, that the center just kind of rotates a lot. It does also take 10 minutes to march towards the center, but it doesn't take a march slot. So that is maybe beneficial. So I guess if you are strong enough, you should be gathering and also marching center. But let's be realistic though, for most of the players that are not like Plasma 4, 5, 6, 7, marching for center is pretty much going to be not useful. So I would say if you're not high level like that, leave the center fight to those guys who are, Plasma 4 and above. And if you are just kind of like, lower level like me here, around this time, use your relocator. Find a nice spot on the corner of the map where there's a lot of level 1s, and just kind of sit there. As you can see, this is just really crazy in the center. The amount of marches on this kind of reminds me of Capital Clash, actually. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this segment of the map or the battle. So yes, technically the person who gets center has a lot of occupation points that that will apply more Azurtane to them. But if you can't occupy center, you're just kind of wasting stamina on the center. You're better off gathering. You're better off doing pickups still. All right, so that's pretty much it. You know, what do I think about the event? I think it's actually pretty cool overall. I think it's a great event. I think it's very dynamic. I think it's actually very fun. So, you know, the ability to kind of hop around the map a lot. You're kind of, I didn't feel like throughout the whole event I was ever, you know, like doing nothing, bored. I was busy looking around the map. I was trying to find targets to attack so I can drop more Azurtane on the ground to then gather up. I was, you know, kind of defending. So obviously you want to be alert to recalling your gatherers when you're being marched on, especially if you're lower level. And then of course, whenever eruptions happen, making sure that about a minute before you have all your troops recalled, or, you know, have your relocated ready for when the eruptions happen, because that's a good chunk of the points will come from the eruptions. But honestly, overall, if you want to maximize points for this event, my recommendation for you is don't worry too much about the level 1, level 2, level 3 gathering. Just do level 1. Honestly, if it's less challenging, you can stay on there longer. You're probably actually going to end up with more gas in general. Stay around areas where people are going to be fighting a little bit, because the amount of fighting that they do will generate Azurtane on the ground. I keep saying Azurite. Anyways, probably all the WoW videos I watch. And then lastly, you know, whenever the center opens, I wouldn't really just stay away from it. Honestly, you know, from reading state chat a little bit after the event, most people were saying, yeah, don't stay in center. That I would pretty much agree with that, unless of course you are one of the strongest, you know, people, you have the best items, etc. Then yeah, center can be very rewarding. If you look at the point system of center, it's quite a bit of points for being ranked, let's say top, let's say 20 on time spent on center. Otherwise, that's it. I mean, I hope, you know, you enjoy this event. I think it's very fun. I think it's very dynamic, and, you know, if nothing else, it's very refreshing. I like the fact that you know, State of Survival continues to build out new events that's kind of fun for the players, not just super boring things like digs. So yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Masaki from State 483, and stay classy. I'll see you next time.